XFactor #1 debuts today, introducing an all-new series into the Dawn of X. Today I'll answer, what's the role of the all-new XFactor in the Dawn of X? What's their role been historically and what may have changed? Who are the major players on this XFactor team? Going into the history and a little bit of detail behind the lineup so you can familiarize yourself with the players. And where do we go from here? What is XFactor's role, and what are we going to find as we move forward into the Dawn of X in an all-new series launch? We really haven't had that many series launches when you consider how big House of X and Powers of 10 have been in the X-Men universe. I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of Comic Book Herald. If you like the CBH YouTube channel or podcast, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing. That would be greatly appreciated. Spoilers for XFactor #1 will follow. All right. The issue, written by Leah Williams, art by David Baldeon, colors by Israel Silva, and letters by Joe Caramagna, opens with Jean Paul realizing Aurora's dead in a sudden premonition due to the bond the Alpha Flight lifers share as twins. So Jean Paul here is super speed North Star, and his twin sister Aurora. We'll get into Jean's history a little bit, but Aurora has the power of flight. And throughout her history, and I can't say the power of flight without saying, that do anything for you, Kyle? But throughout Aurora's history, she's battled dissociative identity disorder and sought new avenues to improve her mental health. From my memory, the last time I remember seeing Aurora was during Captain Marvel during the Alpha Flight as that space shield / sword, days, but I'm sure we'll get more context on what she's been up to throughout this series. Jean Paul turns to the Five, only to find, and the Five being, the Krakoan Resurrection Unit, as we remember, only to find that the team is backed up beyond belief with the Resurrection requests. As one of the more surly and hostile characters in the X-Men family, or at least he can come off that way when things aren't going his way, Jean rips into Hope Summers and the like for wasting time and not resurrecting his sister, right? He wants her, brought back immediately. That is the promise of Krakoa. In turn, Hope and company tell Jean he needs to prove that Aurora is actually dead before they can do anything. So at the start of his investigation, Northstar turns to the Green Lagoon and bartender Fred Dukes, aka the Blob, as his very best self, and this is where Polaris, Lorna Dane, overhears him and quickly turns the investigation into new look beginnings for an X-Factor unit. Conceptually, this is such a great hook, as clearly this is a Krakoan need in order to ensure a smooth resurrection protocol for all of mutant kind. Definitely something that Krakoa, definitely needs. Now, historically, X-Factor has taken a few different looks. With the general idea, they investigate and find mutants holding relatively steady at the group center. The team debuted in 1986 in the wake of Jean Grey's post-Dark Phoenix Saga Resurrection as a method for bringing the original 5 X-Men back together as a team. For a time, X-Factor masquerades as a mutant hunting unit to keep normal humans, in quotes, safe in the O5's effort to get humans to tell them where mutants were appearing so they could reach them first and ultimately protect them. Yeah, it's a little convoluted. The most memorable issues of this early run are by a husband and wife duo, Louise and Walt Simonson, including developments like the debut of Apocalypse, Archangel, and most importantly, Nanny and Orphan Maker. In the 2000s, X-Factor became synonymous with writer Peter David in a unit including Madrox the Multiple Man, Strong Guy, Layla Miller, Richter, Monet, Siren, and a handful of others. The book ran from 2005 to 2013 and focused pretty heavily on the detective side of the unit and Multiple Man's abilities. I think definitely if you're a fan of 2000s era Marvel Comics, X-Factor is a series you will want to check out. You can lead into it with actually a Madrox 5-issue mini that really leans heavily into the noir sensibilities that made this book pretty appealing, I think, for a wide number of fans. So who are the new look X-Factor? Well, first, again, we have Jean Paul, aka Northstar. He debuted in John Byrne's 80s Alpha Flight as a Canadian mutant with super speed. Jean Paul shares a special connection with twin sister Aurora and is perhaps most famous now as one of Marvel's most well-known canonically gay characters, and one who got married in a special issue of Astonishing X-Men number 50. Next up, we have Lorna Dane, aka Polaris. She's been in and out of the core X-Men franchise since the Silver Age, initially as the romantic partner of Alex Summers, Havoc. Indeed, Lorna is one of the mutants the all-new X-Men rushed to Krakoa to save in 1975's Giant-Size X-Men #1, and it's Lorna's magnetic abilities that hurl Krakoa into space. She's the daughter of Magneto, which has been a tumultuous relationship, but the two appear to be on very solid footing in the Krakoa era, as we'll see in this very issue of X-Factor #1. We have Prodigy, who is mentioned here as just resurrected. David Allen is a bisexual, relatively new mutant whose most notable modern appearances came in the Kieran Gillen and Jamie McKelvey Young Avengers run during the Marvel Now era. Prodigy is a genius who can sort of Taskmaster-like, take on abilities of those he observes. I'm not 100% sure why he needed resurrecting, although it's possible that since he was depowered on M-Day way back in 2005, that he would have pursued the Crucible to be reborn with his full gift intact. We also have Rachel Summers joining the crew. Rachel's probably the most well-known member of XFactor, a longtime player in X-Men and Excalibur. Notably, Rachel is still keeping the werewolf, Amazing Baby, recovered from the pages of Excalibur with her in the modern Dawn of X Excalibur wherever she goes. But of course, she has, psychic, immense abilities and has taken on, the Phoenix moniker and Phoenix power set throughout her history with the X-Men. Then we have Dakan, the son of Wolverine and historically one of just the worst people. Dakan is Wolverine's healing factor, 2 claws in each hand, and a mutant pheromone to influence the emotions of anyone. He is manipulative, violent, and often dangerous, although his role here as the X-Men's less jovial Hercules is actually pretty welcome. I love the idea that Dakan is just always drunk and available on the floor of the Green Lagoon Tiki Bar on Krakoa as well. Finally, joining the crew at the last minute is Eye-Boy, aka Trevor Hawkins, and he has a lot of eyes. He debuted in Wolverine and the X-Men, written by Jason Aaron, and has since developed his powers to include eyes that can see various spectrums and significant skills as a battle-tested leader. He can kind of see all the angles. Trevor's awesome, and nothing bad should ever happen to him. So, the new XFactor unit, they prove pretty adept at conducting an investigation. They all go to figure out what happened to Aurora, and we get to see virtually everyone chip in some capacity. We get to see Rachel use her telekinetic abilities to sort of view what was happening, what was Aurora doing in that room moment by moment, and then we get to see Eye-Boy, look into the water to find, are there any vehicles there as the team tracks what might have happened, and ultimately, Aurora's death is confirmed, having drowned under mysterious circumstances in a vehicle near the motel where the team was investigating. So, Northstar's worst fears here, and this premonition is confirmed, which is what he was looking for. But again, it's the death of his sister. And yes, this is Krakoa and people can be brought back, but it's not like this has no emotional impact on these characters. The new X-Factor takes their findings and they present them to the Quiet Council with the 5 in tow. I think one of the major upsides of X-Factor that is immediately apparent in this first issue is how thoroughly integrated it feels into Krakoan life. Right? I don't think we've seen a single book, even the X-Men line, written, by Jonathan Hickman himself, that so precisely and deliberately touches on all these elements of what makes Krakoa special post House of X and Powers of 10. Again, we get to see the Quiet Council in action. We get to see the 5. We're going to get to see Sage and Forge, in their capacities on Krakoa. It really feels like a day in the life on Krakoa. I think that is one of the immense appeals. We could spend time at the Green Lagoon, the bar where the mutants hang, right? It definitely feels more like a book where we get to hang out on Krakoa than many of the series have really been able to tap into because they have so much going on. The issue also ends with a handful of really great Lorna Dane moments, including a brief moment with Papa Magneto. Leigh Williams clearly sets a mission statement of finding Lorna Dane through this series, right? Literally finding who is she meant to be. And it's remarkably refreshing to see a creative vision take Lorna out of Magneto's shadow, if only for a moment, and a clear space for her to become what she's meant to be. I really like the dynamics that are being set up here. We don't get to see Proud Papa Magneto almost ever, and certainly even less so now that Quicksilver and Wanda Maximoff have been revealed to not actually be his children. So it's and obviously that some people like to debate that. I've done a video on the Scarlet Witch's parentage that you can check out in the Krakin Krakoa series. But Lorna Dane, you don't have any of that complication, at least for the time being. We get to figure out who's she going to be. We'd also get to see her collaborate with Krakoa, who she once threw into outer space. Again, she is the one who sent Krakoa away after the X-Men escaped in the iconic Giant Size X-Men #1. I am genuinely curious as well. Like the issue doesn't go into this, but how did Krakoa get back to Earth? I did a history of Krakoa, and you can check that out in the Krakin Krakoa series here on the YouTube channel of CBH. But I don't actually know officially, like, how did Krakoa get back? How did it align with Professor X and the X-Men and all this stuff? I think these are still questions that are very interesting. I don't anticipate necessarily that Lorna is the key to these answers, but as the one who tossed it into space and with X-Factor as an investigative unit, if there's an arc that is like investigating what went on with Krakoa, I am super, super here for that. So the team syncs up with Sage. She's got all the info and the network of comings and goings of mutants on the island, and they sync up with Forge and his tech to really kick off X-Factor in earnest. So it's a really seamless, natural fit into Krakoa. Again, like kind of as the 5 say to the Quiet Council, we've needed this for a while, right? We have all these resurrection requests. We have no one out there, on a like specific deliberate basis actually investigating these issues. So XFactor is super helpful. They need this team to go and figure out where are these missing mutants, or are they actually deceased in some instances. As we should have expected, there's an enormous volume of missing mutants to investigate. So it's setting up the series for a good long run, and I'm definitely really looking forward to where we can take things. The end of the issue, of course, is very interesting as well with the data page here. So we have 2 pages worth of rules of resurrection. Although so much of the articles here are redacted that it's barely a paragraph of readable text when all is said and done. I do definitely want to call out, highlighted in red in the redacted space is what's called the augury incident. Now, I had to look this up, but augury it means a number of things, but it's a prophetic divining of the future is one use of this, okay? And to me, that immediately screams resurrection protocols being redacted. That's probably talking about Moira's insistence on keeping anyone who could prophesize, anyone who could divine the future, out of resurrection protocols, right? Most notably, that's going to include Destiny and Blindfold. So that's my suspicion for what the augury incident is in reference to. Although, again, the fact that the text is actually visible to us means it could be something that gets explained in further detail and could be something else. I don't know. Again, if you're referring to it as an incident, something major that has occurred, we haven't actually seen that side of things yet, right? We have Mystique wants to bring Destiny back, and we know she's planning something and likely will happen. We haven't actually seen that happen yet. But otherwise, we do see these official rules for XFactor, knowing that basically Cerebro has been unable to pull it back up for no less than a month. And then there's a report generated. Sage confirms that they can't find this person, and then they get categorized as missing. And XFactor launches an investigation, which all of which makes sense. All right, that was XFactor number 1. It's a very good opening issue. Again, I think if you're as game for slice of life Krakoa stuff as I am, and definitely just the natural fit this has with all of the resurrection protocols of Krakoa, with actually giving the 5 a voice rather than being this sort of entity, this sort of a plot device for the Hickman X-Men vision. Now they are actual characters who get to speak in an issue. That's good. That's welcome. I enjoyed seeing this. I'm looking forward to see where Williams, Baldeon, and the team are going to take XFactor in the future. And the tease in Krakoan for XFactor number 2 is the Mojoverse, which is rarely as good as it sounds, but it's always weird, and that's pretty welcome too. So whether that means we're going to be doing some long shot investigations, some spiral investigation, or just, of course, having the big old weird spineless one himself, Mojo, I am intrigued. So thanks everybody for listening. You can find support for Comic Book Herald at patreon.com/Comic Book Herald if you're so inclined. That is greatly appreciated. I do want to thank our mysterious benefactors, those contributing at the mysterious benefactors tier to make Comic Book Herald content possible. Thank you, Jeff Zacharias, Ron Paul Kirkley, Jesse W., Robert Mickelson, Professor Pride, Steve Brennan, and Cole Weathers and Martin Lopez, some new backers. If you would like your name read as a supporter in the Mysterious Benefactors tier, go on over to patreon.com/Comic Book Herald, and you can back the site there at that tier or any other tier. I'm Dave. You can find my work at comicbookherald.com, at Comic Book Herald Online, and I would encourage you to look for the best comics ever and My Marvelous Year podcast. I just recorded yesterday an interview with X-Force artist Joshua Cassera. That was quite good for me. Hopefully, hopefully he enjoyed his time as well, and hopefully you all think it's a good interview to listen to on your time. So that will be dropping here into the coming weeks. But again, if you check out the Best Comics Ever podcast, you will, of course, be the first to know. So thanks, everybody, for listening. And as always, enjoy the comics.